This is Punk Rock and Politics, and today is December 19th, 2017, and this is episode number 47. Let's do this!
These days are strange, it's true.
I would bomb the shit out of them.
If you think that punk rock doesn't mix with politics, you're wrong.
Welcome to Punk Rock and Politics. Today we'll be talking with the band Step on the People about the difficulties being a Hawaiian-based band, the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, and the reoccurring theme of the US government and corporations using American citizens and our land as a chemical testing ground.
Hawaii is seeing a lot of birth defects because of this crazy heavy use of pesticides, because they're using it as a testing ground. They're not being honest about when they're spraying or how close they are to schools and rivers. For the people there trying to companies under control so it's not poisoning everything, it's been a real legal struggle that they're losing.
Then on Open Mike's Last Call, we'll talk about Doug Jones's epic win for the Alabama State Senate. And does he have something more to offer other than the fact he's simply not Roy Moore? And thank God that Roy Moore is out of the public sphere. Hopefully we never have to talk about that guy again. So all of that and more on today's episode. So let's get to the political mosh pit. But first, here's the news of the week.
Here's what's making news.
December 12th has always been a historic day for the Jones family. This is, as you know, mine and Louise's 25th wedding anniversary. My running mate, my partner.
That was audio from Doug Jones's victory speech as he wins the Alabama Senate race from the vacant seat formerly held by Attorney General and evil Keebler elf Jeff Sessions. We'll have more on this at the end of the program. America's most hated man, Ajit Pai, the FCC director, led the repeal of net neutrality along with two other Republicans with a 3-2 vote along party lines. Many states are putting into place their own net neutrality laws to skirt the FCC's decision. We'll see how this develops in the future. And in further pursuit of world domination, Walt Disney has agreed to buy most of 21st Century Fox for $52 billion. This move will make Disney one of the largest media companies in the world, and the deal will likely face scrutiny by regulators before it's finalized. And in war news, in Yemen, health officials say an airstrike by the US-funded Saudi-led coalition has struck a wedding east of Yemen's capital, killing 10 women. And we wonder how the terrorists are created, huh?
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
That's some sound from one of the videos released by the Pentagon's UFO program, which took place from 2007 and was reportedly ended in 2012. The CIA released 13 million pages of previously classified documents which contain UFO sightings, psychic experiments from the Stargate program, and papers from Kissinger, Nixon, and a lot more. The Pentagon program was reported to have cost $20 million. To the Stars Academy, which is controlled by rocker Tom DeLonge from the band Blink-182, broke a lot of this information. And hey Tom, you can always come here on the podcast and talk about it. You know, I want to believe. On this day in rock history, December 19th, 2015, 33 years after the album was released, Michael Jackson's Thriller became the first album to sell more than 30 million copies here in the US. Wow, that's a lot of albums. And that's the news of the week. What's up, my fellow political junkies? On today's episode of the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, we'll be traveling all the way across the Pacific Ocean to talk with the band Step on the People. Step on the People is a Hawaiian-based band. They are a punk rock fusion band, but they don't limit themselves when it comes to music. They also play funk, reggae, and many other styles, which comes through when you hear their recorded music. They mix punk with politically aware lyrics and some pretty psychedelic guitar solos. Put it all together and you get a very unique but solid sound, something that we're definitely excited to feature here on the podcast. And since Step on the People is a Hawaiian-based band, it means traveling is very difficult and expensive. And with that being said, a band based in Hawaii creates even more problems for a new band. And that's why it's important to highlight and encourage musicians and artists that have to deal with even more problems than just finding gear, gigs to play, and everything else that comes with being an independent band. And that's why I was pleased to feature Step on the People on today's episode. But before we get to the interview, let's check out one of their songs. Here's Universal Man by Step on the People.
Build a universal man and streamlines the theory. Working with robotic hands, we shall build a perfect economy. No more human error, no more humans at all. Our drive for endless progress shall lead to our downfall. Civilization has outgrown the need for human beings. Mechanical cells into the animal that chokes society. Blood pumps in and comes without on the face of the system. We have all sacrificed this on the altar of efficiency. No more clocks, no more rights, no more lies disobeyed in the words of fucking God. We're about to what happened. We shall build a universal man and streamlines the theory. Working with robotic hands, we shall build a perfect economy. No more human error, no more humans at all. Our drive for endless progress shall lead to our downfall. There is no universal man, says the philosopher. Then we shall build him, says the engineer. Our God is now a supercomputer. It's time to remove the flaw. Tens of trillions of thoughts a second, no use for humans at all. Civilization is outgrown the need for human beings. Mechanical cells in the animal that chokes society. Blood pumps in and causes out of the veins of the city. We're all sacrifices on the altar of efficiency. No more clocks, no more rights, no more laws disobeyed in the words of fucking God. No more human beings.
And that was Universal Man by Step on the People. And I have half of the band from Step on the People. I have Sam, Johnny, and Asia. Hi, guys, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks
for having us. This is a great opportunity. It's like much get to talk to people outside our tiny town.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, a tiny town, and then I would imagine you guys are based out of Hawaii. So I'd imagine even being in a state like Hawaii, an island, isolation is kind of part of the gig, huh?
Yeah, very much so. There's a scene on Oahu which we can't get to because we don't all have the money at one time to do, but we're working on that. We got the album out, well, not out, but finished, and we're trying to get that our town here in Hilo.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a struggle, though. There's a very certain style of music that does well here on this island, and we definitely don't fall into that category. So a lot of what's kept us going is just people in the local scene who all are trying to encourage alternative types of music, and we definitely wouldn't have even made it close to this far without a bunch of people supporting the community.
Right. So, and you guys are based in Hilo, then?
Yeah, well, we live in Puna, which is the district right next to Hilo, and we play in Hilo because that's the big town that we can play at.
There's basically nowhere else to play, and in Hilo, it's pretty much slim pickings anyway.
So what would it cost, and what would you guys have to do if you did want to travel to another island to be able to go play at another bar or at another venue?
It would take, we'd have to lug some of our equipment, or they'd have to have house equipment. Otherwise, we're paying a few $100 bare minimum each of us to get guitars, drums, bass, amps out there. And just to get tickets out there to play a gig would be a couple $100 each, $150 each, basically, for a round trip there and back. And split between 6 bands, it would.
6 members of the band.
Yeah. 6 bands would be a lot more.
Yeah, but 6 members of the band.
Now you're getting into some crazy math.
It would be awful.
Yeah. 6 times 6, and, yeah.
It would end up being like $1,500 bucks roughly to play a gig.
If you wanted to do a tour even, several ones, it would add up really quick.
Right. It does, definitely. And then just getting there is half the battle. Once you're there, you need to have lodging, and if you don't already have connections and people willing to let you crash on their couch, especially in Oahu where you get more chances to play, the rent there is so out of control that I remember I got free tickets to a concert once, but we still ended up spending like $400 when it came to transportation and lodging and food, just for half a night, really.
Oh, so just for you guys, for entertainment, to travel to another island, it's going to cost a couple $100. And then how much are the show tickets? Are they cheap? Or are they more expensive because it reflects that?
Well, we get on Oahu, we do get some big bands coming through, big acts, and it really depends on what the person performing is charging. But if it's, $50 for the Blaisdell Arena is not uncommon.
Mm-hmm. Out in Hilo, it's a bit smaller because there's usually smaller gigs. Shows range anywhere between nothing, because you're just playing for a cut of the house makes from beer, or your $5 was a pretty standard thing. Some of the more important local bands, you can $20, $25, usually not too bad, but there's not much in terms of choice.
Wow, yeah.
And that's all just getting to Oahu. If we tried to go to the mainland to do a small tour, that'd shoot up the price exponentially.
Yeah, because each
but there are some
island
bands
you have to travel to, it would cost several $100 each island. Yeah, wow.
Yeah. It is a big challenge. In our local music community, we've built a lot of people who are serious about the music here. They just can't make it because lack of opportunity. So they end up leaving our community and trying to make it on the mainland.
And that just makes, there's no pool of so no venues want to really host anything anyway because of that.
Yeah. That
constant outflux of
it creates people. A void almost. Wow. Huh. That's such a interesting problem to have. Because a lot of, I haven't interviewed any bands who are on an island, out there. And that's so interesting because a lot of bands here, I was talking to a band from Seattle. They kind of just took the weekend and hopped in their car, drove all the way down to San Diego and then back up to Seattle, played several gigs in between that. And that probably costs about how much it would cost just for you guys to get over to another island and back. Like, that's nuts. Wow.
Yeah. That's the dream too. We would like to go to the mainland and just go up and down the coast for a couple $100 if we could.
Even if we lose a ton of money in the process, just to be able to do it at all.
It would almost be a good investment to go to the mainland and do a tour on the mainland versus trying to save the money to go to another island out there almost.
Yeah. It would be cheaper long run.
We'd probably get far more exposure and
it would be more productive almost. So let's go to one more song and then we'll kind of hop into political mosh pit. But before I get into there, I should have did this when we first started the interview. But can we have? I mean, I definitely could tell Asia's voice, but can we have Sam and Johnny? Well, and Asia, can you all introduce yourself and tell us what instrument you guys play?
All right, my name is Sam, lead singer, and I write the lyrics.
My name is Johnny. I play usually the rhythm guitar and a lot of weird effectsy guitar and the organ on Universal Man.
I'm Asia, and I guess the main thing I do is backup vocals, but when I first joined the band, because we're all friends, and I was mainly just driving to all the practices, over time, they've worked me more in with the backup vocals, which they prefer a lot more over the tambourine. That actually kind of started half as a joke of them just wanting me to do something with them at practice.
Hey, if you can keep a beat, why not? Cool. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for introducing yourself, guys. All right. Well, let's get to the political mosh pit. And here's one more with a pretty epic title. Here's Bomb Me Baby by Step on the People. right, and that was Bomb Me Baby by Step on the People. And speaking of bombs and bombing people and all this crazy shit, Hawaii is currently like on high alert, I understand, due to North Korea. Can you guys tell me more about that situation?
Well, we are, like, as far as states goes, the closest to North Korea. Well, they'd probably hit Guam first or somewhere closer, but as far as states go, and as far as big military presence, Hawaii could be a large target. We had a new alarm system at the beginning of this month, the nuclear warning alert.
Yeah, they revived that from the Cold War. And it's been kind of interesting, too, because I actually didn't hear it when it went off, being kind of higher up in the mountain than where all the alarms go off. But it was almost kind of a half joke. I mean, we're all worried about it, but the publicity about what to do should the alarm go off wasn't very well, put out into the community yet.
The thing they told us to do was you have 20 minutes to get as far away from any, like, population center and then stay in your house for 4 weeks.
Oh, jeez.
And here, our houses are all wood.
Yeah.
If we're worried about radiation, we're dead.
Right.
I mean, we could hide in lava tubes maybe, but...
If you can get inside and access.
Yeah.
At this point, the protocol might just be, you hear the alarms, dead.
Say goodbye. Yeah.
Just say goodbye to your friends
Kiss
and
your
family.
ass goodbye.
Enjoy your last
And
moments.
even on Oahu, Oahu, which is, crazy populated, biggest concentration in the state, on one of the tiniest islands, they do have bomb shelters there, but they were made in the Cold War, so a lot of them are actually out of commission right now. So I'm not even sure what they would do at this point.
I guess also die.
Yeah, there's not a lot of options.
Oh, wow. So
so the warning is basically a warning. Say your last prayers, I guess.
Yeah. And it's Cold War, bringing back Cold War, tools. And then that kind of got me thinking, about the Russia, new, quote unquote, new Cold War that's going on with Russia. I wonder, have they said anything about, it's also just in case Russia hits, or is this strictly only North Korea as they're pitching it there in Hawaii?
This is strictly North Korea at the moment. If Russia hits, I'm pretty sure it'd be like some sort of cyber attack again, because their cyber units are pretty effective, I'd say. Also,
it really doesn't take much to jam up the internet connection in Hawaii. We pretty much are on a closed system, and if there's problems, everybody has them pretty much.
But we don't expect any bombing situation from Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think...
At least not on our island. Maybe Oahu.
Right, yeah, and I think you have a really good point that if Russia is going to do some sort of attack, it's not going to just be some crazy shooting a missile off like, North Korea, like Kim Jong-un, like a psychopath, just doing it, for shits and giggles. So, it's a good point. Overall in Hawaii, is there a sense of worry? You said it was kind of a joke, but I mean, is there a sense of worry or not really?
There's a number of ways people are taking it. One is like a joke. It's like, what can you do? There's nothing you can do. There is like some political factions that are trying to use it as justification to split from the United States. There's also people who want to increase our military and further crack down on just militarize our police force some more, and just in preparation. But there's all kinds of different ways people are taking it, and really the most common one is, what can you do?
Yeah.
Well, and the other fights that it brings up about militarizing Hawaii and, separating from the United States, those are very common undercurrents always under the surface here. The military presence in Hawaii, some people think it's just way too high. It's, other than tourism, it's like the main source of the economy here. There's bases all over the place, for better or for worse. Yeah. And as for the sovereign movement, that's always been there since Hawaii was unrightfully taken over by the United States.
Yes. Okay, good. I wish I didn't write this in my show notes, so I didn't bring it up, but I did hear a whole interview with it was a college professor who actually taught at one of the schools in Hawaii, and he was saying that it was never actually it was just voted in Congress to annex Hawaii as basically a state, but Hawaii never, the kingdom that was there before, from what I understand, please correct me if I'm totally wrong, but the kingdom, they never said, yes, we want to be a part of America, which that's essential in accepting a state. Am I right on that?
You are right. Well, there's kind of a gray area because the Queen didn't want any bloodshed because the Marines were right outside the palace and were threatening the whole royal family. But there was never really consent given over like, yes, Hawaii could be part of the United States. It was more of
forcefully taken.
Yeah. And like even after, say, forced the Queen out of office, like the United States didn't just pick up Hawaii. There was a council set here. I think it was called James Blunt was the guy's name, who came over here and basically said to the United States Congress that what you're doing here is illegal. There was an illegal coup against the Hawaiian Kingdom, and for 2 years there was no movement. There was in Hawaii the people who overthrew the kingdom, since the United States wouldn't take them, declared themselves a republic and said the United States was saying that you have to return the monarchy, but the people who overthrew the monarchy said you can't interfere in the affairs of a sovereign nation that we just made, and we wanted to become a part of the United States, but since no, you can't interfere with us.
It's almost like America after we invaded Iraq, kind of just saying, oh, okay, well, we're going to make Iraq the 51st state. It's almost like, seems like that.
Sort of. It'd be like if they built up this false democracy and that didn't work, and then they just took it over as the state, which
okay, I see. So they're trying
pretty similar, except without all the bloodshed.
Yeah, so they're trying to do what we do pretty much in every other part of the world, is prop up a fake dictator and then run the country through that dictator. I see. Wow.
There's a book called Overthrow, which uses Hawaii as a template for like other overthrows in like Latin America and the Middle East. The United States used Hawaii as a template to do this.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I know in Latin America, with Pinochet and everything, it was textbook to go in there and do that. Huh. I had no idea Hawaii was kind of the template.
Yes.
Oh, so
and there's on all sides of the issue, there's a lot of murky information. So the common understanding by everybody in Hawaii is dramatically different based on what they've looked into and everything. But everyone admits that regardless of where we stand now, when Hawaii was taken over, it was done wrong. Something that was fair or legal or any of that. But a lot of, there's kind of two sides to the issue. One is, well, we can fix this, and the other one, it is now, so we'll just work with what we have. And it's really hard to know where to stand. I'm personally for becoming a separate country, but there's a lot of blowback that would happen if that happened, because, we're used to certain amenities. So it's a complicated issue, and it's always going to be. It'll be interesting to see how it goes as the U.S. gets more and more crazier with global.
Well, I fear like if we got hit by a big hurricane, we'd end up like Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I was
guaranteed.
Just gonna say
it's such difficult shit.
Yeah, because a lot of people when you talk to, they don't even know. They don't know that Puerto Rico, a lot of the people there are citizens, are American citizens. A lot of people here in the mainland don't know that.
Yeah.
Growing up here in Hawaii, like I'm born and raised, and a big force. They seem only kind of half aware Hawaii is a state, and only kind of half aware that we're a modern, like a monarchy. They think everything is grass skirts. We live in grass shacks. They ask me, "Oh, do you guys all wear grass? Do you all like live in grass skirts? Do you have electricity? Do you guys have every meal? Like, do you guys even have cars?"
Yeah.
And the front that's presented to that side is completely different. A lot of the totally different Hawaii than the one that exists. Like, there's a huge income inequality. There's huge amount of our culture being sold and repackaged, who don't even want to make a cursory understanding of it. They just want to enjoy a Mai Tai on the beach, in a big hotel staffed by Hawaiians, but a bunch of white people who live so far away and have no connection or desire to preserve the land or the culture or the people.
Yes, and this type of gentrification, let's call this like a tropical gentrification, the same exact type of thing is going on in LA and in New York and all across America. I was in New York recently, and I went to CBGB's where it used to be. I was at a bar, and just so happened I was like, oh shit, I'm right over by where CBGB's used to be. I'm gonna go see. I know it's closed down, but maybe the building's still there. Maybe they have a little plaque, because that was a iconic punk bar. I went there, now it's just some horrible, ugly, super fancy looking hotel or a luxury apartment complex. No plaque, no sign, nothing. It's just, it's disgusting, and just like you said, so going from being kind of an occupied force that America was and kind of taking over the country, and then you said now there's gentrification and a huge income gap. So the homelessness here in Southern California and all across in the mainland, it's a big problem. But you're saying out there in Hawaii, homelessness is also a really big problem. Do you want to hit on that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's like, whenever you go into town, there are people just lining the streets. It's an effect because here we have one of the highest cost of living in the nation. Though I imagine some of the smaller islands have a bit higher, though everything here is just extremely expensive. It's hard to get, like, I went to the mainland for a couple months, and the thing that surprised me most was the food was so cheap.
Yeah.
Like, everything here is more expensive. Just finding a place to stay is a challenge.
Yeah, I think there's a big misconception about homelessness in Hawaii. Some people go, oh, they're lazy or whatever. But a lot of the homelessness, especially in Oahu, these people have full-time jobs and families. They just still can't afford rent on top of that, even with the income they get.
Almost everyone here is below the poverty line. Most normal people are on so much government assistance, it's not even funny. Like, everyone pays with like food stamps and DVD everywhere. It doesn't matter. Like, everyone has it. Everyone who qualifies is trying to get Section 8 housing. And if you can't get access to those things effectively, you can't jump through those hoops, or you're unwell, or you're sick, or you're just unable to make it to the office, which have limited hours and limited times, and you're shit out of luck. You're going to sleep in your car if you have a car, or barring that, you're going to sleep outside someone's storefront on the bayfront because the wind keeps off of you.
And so out there, are people, do they set up camps and have tents set up, or do the police, you said they're pretty militarized, are the police go in there and rip down tents? How does that work?
Well, on Oahu, there's a few encampments, and they do encampment raids every now and then. There's a few big ones that are quite famous. Do you know the names?
I can't remember the names. I know there was a lot of controversy on Oahu because there was a whole functioning homeless community that had a camp that was being run, and they were trying to work with local government, and local government just went in and said, no, we're going to start taking it down anyway. And those people have nowhere to go. It's not like they can, walk to another place or drive. They're already in poverty. They can't afford plane tickets to somewhere else.
They're just going to set up a tent another place.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's easy to disappear in the bushes out here. Like, if you're a couple of people, but the cops try to keep homeless away from the tourists.
Yeah.
They, especially around like events, the yearly like hula festival, the Merry Monarch Festival. Basically, they try to clear the homeless away from constantly run streets. During the Ironman triathlon on the Kona side of the island, on the main drive that like all the tourists stay, they pull homeless out. They like either throw them in jail for the night or try to get them far and farther away, just so they're out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Just so we could keep this image of a paradise for tourists to come and take our livelihood.
Well, and there's another layer to it as well, the gentrification and homelessness. So not only do people not have the means to go elsewhere, but I mean, probably the one unique thing about Hawaii is it was a whole functioning culture for thousands of years, its own kingdom, and their culture was mainly stripped away, and they're trying to hold on to what little they can with it. And you just see step by step kind of the Western mentality and capitalism and gentrification pulling away what's there, trying to make a quick buck and profit off of it, which diminishes the actual community it originated from. So, I mean, if your family's been on Oahu for, 10 generations, and suddenly you're broke and being pressured to leave the island, you might just out of desperation if you can, but you shouldn't have to if you have such big ties to the land and that's your home.
In fact, like, that's what most people's goals are. Like, in school, what are you going to do once you graduate? I'm getting off the island. That's not everyone's number one goal, because it's so difficult to just put down roots here.
Yeah, and that's rough, because all those people who could be contributing out to kind of building something out here, to improving life for each other and for like Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian society, all leave constantly. So you have a glut of anyone with any skills has to go. They have to go so they can keep making a living. And so what's left here are fewer and fewer skilled workers and fewer opportunities.
And that also builds like the black market economy, and it fuels the drug crisis here, as meth is easy to make and people makes money.
It's the only reliable way sometimes. You're like, I starve or sell meth, and so you'll pick meth, and it doesn't go good for everyone because you're also just still damaging the community just to stay alive.
So out here, the opioid epidemic is raging really bad over here, as in the mainland, and that really was picked up into steam because of pharmaceutical industry profits, more or less, just giving out opioid painkillers and then people moving to heroin. So I know methamphetamine has always been a problem on the islands, but are you seeing this problem with heroin or just meth? Because like you said, it's easier to make the meth.
Pills are a problem, and so is like opioids. Not quite as much as meth. Meth is super prevalent. It's way more prevalent because it's easier to score meth than it is to even get pills or heroin. Like, it's difficult to get that.
It's easier to get meth than a job.
Yeah. Well, but we do know some people who did have heroin problems who seem to be doing okay now, luckily. But even for me, I just recently broke my ankle in 3 places, and they gave me 3 different kinds of opioids for it, which I tried to not take as much as possible. But had I any proclivity for, addiction, that would have been terrible for me.
You struggle with it constantly, and it's also, it feels hopeless at times. You're watching your culture get destroyed. You're unable to find jobs because 1 out of every 3 people may have a job. But I mean, even with our band and the households we live in, most of us don't work or have such limited funds from working to get by, and we only get by on sort of our goodwill and taking care of each other.
Yeah, when we started the band, we were all living in the same garage, kind of just as a flop house, the only place we could stay and contribute to actually. We had, how many people were in the house at that time?
At one point, I think there was 13 people.
Yeah, 13 people trying to contribute to keep this one house afloat.
And that's not uncommon in Hawaii. Rent is so high. Even our island, which is not considered as expensive as the other ones. If you try to rent a place, say in Hilo, one of the main towns, you're most likely having at least 2 to 3 roommates at bare minimum.
Yeah, and a lot of the wages aren't that much. And like you were saying before, people either end up leaving the island or they have to conform and they have to go get that job at Starbucks or at McDonald's just to make it
or join the military.
And then that's kind of feeding the beast. That's continuing the cycle going. But you can't blame these individual people because they have no other choice.
Right.
Yeah. And so for most people, especially like the Hawaiians here, their choices are either serve the white man who conquered you or die for them. It's a fucked up decision.
Yeah. I mean, everybody makes minimum usually, and a lot of the time you make way less than minimum. Even like the above board big companies like Safeway and stuff, what they'll do is they'll give you a bunch of unpaid hours, or they'll under the table you so they don't have to give you any sort of benefits or healthcare. So on deck, you look like you're working 12 hours a week, not even 20 for a part-time. So no benefits for you. But at the same time, they're working you 40, 50 hours a week every week.
Well, and then you go, well, I'll go with a local business owner. But a lot of them, because of the harsh small business models for Hawaii, the taxing and all that, they're pulling every under the table method they can do to get by too. So it's really hard not to be taken advantage of as a worker in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. I never understood why they don't do, if you're a small business, a legitimately small business, you have a 0 income or a 0 tax rate, corporate tax rate. But if Walmart and Amazon and, especially the NFL, who's actually a non-profit organization, these corporations should be paying way more 20, 30, 40% in corporate income tax. So then it'll give the smaller businesses a chance to thrive and grow. I could never understand that. So that's a problem here too, but it even is exacerbated out there on the island because there's nowhere to go and there's not very many people. You're focused only on tourism, really. So speaking of low-income jobs and having no opportunities, also you guys were kind of mentioning that there's a lot of slave labor being used on fishing boats. And I had no idea that this was going on.
On Oahu, there's a specific dock, which has a number of captains who will take people from Kiribati, Indonesia, and a number of these other South Seas islands. And because they're not affected by American laws, they could be paid bare absolutely nothing, a few cents every day, and they hold these people's passports. And technically, they're not allowed to touch U.S. soil. Otherwise, they won't be allowed on these ships.
Are they here on a work visa, or how do you know?
Yes and no.
Right.
I don't quite know. I know that due to a loophole the captains are allowed to have them, but they're not allowed to leave the ship. They're not allowed to technically come on to United States land. And so this not only allows the captains to not pay them nearly as much. But also, when in the high seas, they're allowed to do illegal fishing practices because technically the American captain isn't doing them. And so they're allowed to do these long, like real long fishing nets and capture as many things as possible. And so technically the United States has nothing to do with it because it isn't the American doing it. It's the captured crew from all these different small countries doing it.
Wow. And the point is not whether it's legal or illegal by them using a visa. I mean, like you said, I'm sure they're using some sort of loophole, but the problem fucking is that this is wrong and it's immoral to be able to use people like this and not allow them to go on shore and everything. And just because they come from another country. I mean, that's fucked up.
Right.
And we see a lot of examples of illegal, misuse of labor as well, too. Well, talking about slavery, Oahu is one of the biggest hubs for, sex trafficking because it's central to Pacific Islands. So they try to crack down on it, but, going through the airports, you wouldn't be surprised if I've accidentally ridden on a plane with somebody who was being trafficked to another country for sex labor.
Yes.
Just because it's so hard to find. Even in our community on this island, I know there have been several shady landlords who will smuggle in people from the Philippines illegally. And because they're undocumented workers, they'll force them to live in really shitty houses they manage and work for dirt cheap and sometimes nothing.
That's extremely common, actually.
Yeah.
I see that all the time.
Farms
orchid farms and papaya farms. That's super common. Almost no one is documented.
Yeah.
Almost all of them are being sort of paid nothing, just about bare minimum. Here's a shitty little shack that we built. We put it next to all the other shacks and we'll feed you, but we won't really pay you.
Yes.
And what you do get paid, we'll just send it back to your family, right?
Oh, and there's another element of this is that since the crackdowns on illegal immigration and there's been ICE raids in Kona on the papaya farms there, and they've been cracking down on the Filipinos who live here basically and deporting them.
So there's a lot of levels of
Yeah.
Well, and the day he was elected, I remember we were outside band practice and, we're all pretty well off and we were all still freaking out about what this could mean for our community and going forward, especially when it came to things like healthcare and what he had planned for a lot of social services because we're so dependent on them here. It was a terrifying day.
Exactly. I totally agree with you, and it's so interesting how you're saying that with the underpaid slave labor, essentially, but you're saying they're picking papaya. Out here, they're picking avocados. It's the same thing, different people, different story almost, but it's doing the same exact thing. You have a lot of people who come up here illegally, and the coyotes, they end up holding them up in houses. And demanding their families to send them more money, or else they're going to start murdering them or their families. So it's we'll get you across, but we're probably going to blackmail you for money along the way. And meanwhile, the Republicans want to go and demonize the poor people who are being fucked from both ends. It's crazy. And then it's happening over there, but with the Filipinos and with the people from the other islands, the Pacific,
Micronesians get the shit.
Yeah. Oh, that's really.
And racism is always a hard problem here in Hawaii, but I mean, especially seeing what goes on the mainland and racism towards Mexicans and things, and how it's such an echo, and it's so frustrating because you don't know how to explain to people who just see there's these people who don't speak our language stealing our jobs. And it's you shouldn't be mad at the workers, you should be mad at the employers in the system that's exploiting them, but they just can't see through that. And it's so maddening.
Yeah, and the Micronesians are here because we destroyed their island. We nuked their islands. And basically we poisoned their islands, put them on another island which had no water table, and watched them starve. And so most of those who could came to Hawaii.
So, okay, and,
soon we'll probably...
The Micronesians, this is really good. So we only dropped nuclear bombs on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So who are the Micronesians? How are their islands messed up by nuclear bombs?
I think there's two atolls. There's Bikini Atoll and what is it?
You don't have to get the names. I mean,
other atoll started with an E.
Yeah.
That we tested. Basically, started testing our hydrogen weapons. The testing ground for I don't know how long. decade at least.
And this is where they
and
were from.
basically, yeah, these are.
So we didn't attack them, but we illegally used them as a testing ground.
Like we use Kaho'olawe, one of the neighboring islands, in the as a bomb testing ground.
Yeah.
So one of our islands on the chain is unlivable.
Yes. Wow. And now this that island also, who these people they're from, that's their home island. It's uninhabitable now because the radiation is so high.
Yeah, there's a small population there, but it's not livable for the most part. The radiation is too high and contaminated. The fish in the area have been contaminated, and there's like high deformities. It's not a fun situation at all. And so they came over here and there's been a lot of racism against them.
And it's not just like foreigners, it's like the locals who live here, like the Hawaiians and the other Filipinos, the Japanese, all of them, like they gang up on the Micronesians.
That's interesting how that happens. And then, a lot of the the mainlanders or tourists, I'm sure they pick on the natives. So it's kind of interesting how there becomes a hierarchy.
Racial tensions is a really long running undercurrent out here. A lot of the races tend along pretty nicely. Most of us are mixed race, 2 or 3 races, but there are like certain subgroups that, like Micronesians, that get the short end of the stick. There's a real tension from Hawaiians towards just about any white person. Like they use a term, they call them haole.
Okay, yeah. With the history and everything that's gone on that island, it's no surprise that there is such crazy racial tension. And then I'm so happy you were able to address the Micronesians and how we were testing bombs on their country and destroyed their fucking country. No one addresses that. No one mentions that at all. I mean, how many countries have we destroyed and destabilized with bombs, but then we weren't even at war with them. Just like Asia, you said, we used their country as a testing battlefield, which is fucking insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a recurring theme, even outside the military, which has, as Johnny mentioned, made one of our islands unlivable, right now, battle with rich landowners, which is really where the overtake of the Hawaiian kingdom came over. It was people who were invested in the land for business.
Industry.
Sugar, who wanted to take it over, essentially. Right now we have a lot of pesticide companies on Kauai, and Sam was talking about defects in Micronesia, and Kauai is seeing a lot of birth defects because of this crazy heavy use of pesticides, because they're using it as a testing ground to develop new cows. They're not being honest about when they're spraying or how close they are to schools and rivers. So for the people there trying to companies under control so it's not poisoning everything, it's been a real legal struggle that they're losing for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating to see the march of American capitalism still destroying.
I was going to say it's all for profit.
Everything.
It's all for profit. People's lives are expendable at the end of the day with the American capitalist system. It's all for profit, and it's fucking terrifying. But we've gone pretty far. Yeah. On the interview. Thanks so much. I mean, this is a really fascinating interview. I learned quite a bit on this. But before I let you guys go, though, I definitely want you to let everyone know where they can find your music online.
The album isn't quite up just yet. It's kind of been a weird struggle to get the last finishing touches in terms of distribution done. It'll be up on Bandcamp within, I think, the week right now, and we should try to get it on the rest of the platforms by the end of the month or so.
And thank you again so much for having us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for coming on. So by the time this episode has aired, Step on the People, their music should be on Bandcamp and possibly on other platforms. So, Spotify or wherever you guys get your music. And you guys are on Facebook. So I would highly recommend everyone going, liking, and sharing Step on the People because, these guys, they're out in Hawaii. And these guys are pushing it and they're still fucking rocking out. And I mean, after hearing how hard it is to be in a band out there and shit, I always thought it was hard playing here in Southern California and Arizona. You could just drive anywhere. So I got to give you guys massive props for playing and pushing through. So everyone listening, go, please like their page, say what's up and give them as much support as we can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. This is great. I listen to your podcast all the time. I love it. And as soon as the album came out, I sent it to you and a few other podcasts that I listened to. And you coming up to us asking for an interview, it's just great. Thank you so much.
It's very much an honor.
Yeah,
and we greatly appreciate it.
Of course. Well, hey, I'm really happy to have you guys on, and I am just blown away with all the awesome musicians that I've been able to interview. I mean, now I get to say from Hawaii to the UK, so so thank you, guys, and you know. Talking about all these chemicals and everything floating around in the U.S., you know, basically using humans as a testing ground, this is a perfect song to do our segue out. So here's one last song before I let you guys go. Here's All the Chemicals by Step on the People. All right, let's give it up for a Step on the People. It was really cool having them on the podcast. I actually will say that I think I learned more during this episode of the podcast than any other episode. Pretty much whenever I talk to a band, I always usually learn one, maybe two things, but Step on the People, we talked about a lot, and I was familiar with some of those issues, but wow, yeah, I had no idea, especially, I mean, just bombing countries, using it as testing grounds, and then it's just crazy. But it also goes to show you, once again, a lot of the problems that are going on over in Hawaii with Step on the People, that they were able to notice and see the same problems. Kind of, it's parallel to what's going on here in the mainland. Same with what's going on here in San Diego is kind of parallel. The same with what's going on in New York, and also with what's going on here in the States, in America, is also going on also in England. We've talked with a few bands who are over in the UK, and they've kind of echoed the same thing with homelessness and the corruption and the failure of the Liberal Party to actually deliver, except they have Jeremy Corbyn, so there is hope. All right, well, welcome to Open Mic's Last Call. You made it all the way to the end of the podcast, and thank you so much. And yeah, this episode is kind of a special episode. I was going back and looking because it's not the number 50th episode, but I did kind of create like a best of episodes and then do the Punk Rock and Politics mixtape, the volume 1, which volume 2 will be coming out next week, which next week is Christmas. So volume 2 will be coming out next week, but between those 3 episodes, and then this is episode 47, this is technically the 50th episode that I have created and put together, and I liked it. I think I'm really proud of this episode, and I'm very proud of the format that has been created over the past 50 episodes. So yeah, any feedback or anything would be great. But all right, let's move on. I can't just ramble for a while because we got a lot to talk about in today's open mic and last call. And guess what? I was wrong again about my prediction. I thought Roy Moore would surely win because, you know, it's Alabama. And, you know, people in Alabama, they like marry their cousins when they're 16. So hey, Alabama, good on you. But what happened is the exit polls basically show that African American women, 98% voted for Doug Jones, which is just insane. So, good up, like massive props to the African American community, the men and the women, because they came out and voted 98 and like 95% for the males in support of Doug Jones. And not only was it a high percentage that they voted for, but it was a high turnout. So the fact that it was a high turnout and a high percentage, Roy Moore really, didn't have a chance. And the thing is, yeah, everyone's, he only won by 2 percentage points, but it's Alabama. It's been 20 plus years since a Democrat has actually won a seat in Alabama. So, is he a centrist? What's going to happen? Is it okay? Let's talk about it a little bit. But first, I want to play a little bit of his victory speech. So here we go. Here's Doug Jones' victory speech.
We have shown not just around the state of Alabama, but we have shown the country the way that we can be unified. This campaign has never been about me. It's never been about Roy Moore.
Whoa. First of all, it's only been about Roy, touchy fingers, weird ass cowboy Moore. First of all, okay, Doug Jones, you need to understand that no one cares about the people of Alabama, especially the people in Alabama. Don't give a shit because you're a red state and you guys give very low social benefits. You have very low pay in Alabama. So the people of Alabama don't give a shit about each other. So this was not about the people of Alabama. This was about Roy Moore 100%. Let's make that clear. Here, let's hear some more.
This campaign has been about the rule of law. This campaign has been about common courtesy and decency and making sure everyone in this state, regardless of which zip code you live in, is going to get a fair shake in life.
But you don't support Medicare buy-in for all, so you don't really support everyone in the state getting a fair shake. All right, let's keep going on.
There are important issues facing this country. There are important issues of healthcare and jobs and the economy. And I would like, as everyone in the entire probably free world knows right now, we've tried to make sure that this campaign was about finding common ground and reaching across and actually getting things done for the people. I have a challenge. I have this challenge to my future colleagues in Washington. Don't wait on me. Take this election from the great state of Alabama. Take this opportunity in light of this election and go ahead and fund that CHIP program before I get up there.
Did he just call that CHIP program? It's called S-CHIP, but hey, that's okay. He has a lot to learn. All right, that's enough of that shit. But one of the major takeaways of that you have to hear is where he was saying we have to compromise. We have to take a middle ground. And, he actually kind of has a point. Okay, hear me out. I'm a extremist. I'm always very far to the left. I think it's my job to be so far to the left that I pull the party and other people to the left with me, but I understand we still have to find common ground. So it's our jobs, people here on the left coast and, on the, and in New York and very, very liberal areas. It's our job to be extremists. It's our job to push the party to the left. However, Doug Jones, he barely won in Alabama. He has to be a centrist Democrat. He has to. So I'll eat my words, and I definitely thought he was going to lose, but he won, and now that he's going to win, he needs to try to somehow do a balancing act. And you know what? No matter how he votes, he's always going to vote better than Jeff Sessions. So, and the thing about Doug Jones is this whole election, it's been all about, Roy Moore's horrible. It's not about Roy Moore. And once Doug Jones won, I went and read up on him, and he's actually a pretty cool person. And I think he actually will show a lot of promise. He's a lawyer. Took on, he kind of went through the civil rights era. He took on the KKK. He actually went to segregated schools, and then he saw them being integrated while he was in school. So that gives him a really hands-on, unique experience in all of this. And being in Alabama, such a racially segregated state, and there's so much racial tension. I mean, we were talking about the racial tension in Hawaii earlier, but I mean, Alabama, with slavery and everything, that state still has a lot of racial tension. So I think if anyone is there to represent Alabama, on the left, I think he's not that bad. And a lot of people are really upset because he's saying how, we should not listen to Trump's women accusers. And he's saying, I might work with Trump on some things. But you know what? That's what's going to happen. That's what has to happen. Now, let's hope he doesn't stab people in the back or stab the party in the back. But if he's going to do some compromise, that's okay. If he is going to help them vote something, but he's able to get a provision in or an amendment in that makes it a little bit less worse, hey, that's what politics is all about. And he's from Alabama. We have to cut him a little bit of slack. Now, for 2018, what the activists and the left need to do is understand that we got Doug Jones. Kamala Harris here in California, she's not progressive enough. We need a far, far left extremist like a Bernie Sanders over here in the left to, like I said, pull the whole party to the left further. Back to its basically FDR roots, because that's the only way that this party is going to start winning again. And that's one problem. A lot of people are saying, it's because he's a centrist is why he won, and it's because of the rule of law or whatever the fuck he was talking about. But no, he won because he is not Roy Moore. That's it. Don't get any mistake about it, but that's why he won, because he's not Roy Moore. And Roy Moore was such a piece of shit. So that's why he won, but he has a chance here to actually get in office, kind of do some compromises, however, kind of show that Republican state, hey, look, this Democrat as Senate, he's not that bad. Maybe we could vote for more Democrats. Maybe we can vote for them in state office. So it's all about compromise, about slow move. But here in California and other very, very liberal areas, we need to step it up, because, we can't have people like Doug Jones representing us here in California. No. Fuck that. We need people who are far left. So congratulations, Alabama. You don't have a racist fucking creep as a senator. So good job. And let's keep going on to the 2018 midterms. And, with my predictions, I'll make plenty more predictions if I'm wrong every time, and it helps the Democrats win, especially the progressive Democrats. We'll look at that. So thank you so much for either being here for all 50 episodes or for joining in on the political mosh pit somewhere in between. But wherever you joined or whenever you joined, we're glad to have you on along for the ride. I have a really special New Year's spectacular podcast planned. That's actually going to be the 1-year anniversary show. So I'll probably do like a 2-part episode, and hopefully I'm going to get my Republican buddy Ephraim. He's a hardcore Republican, and me and him always do these debates, and they're great. So, you know, I was like, fuck it, might as well have him on here. So I'm going to have him on the podcast, and we're kind of going to just look back at the past year and talk about it, and I'll probably tell him what a big idiot he is for wanting trickle-down economics and how he loves Trump and shit. So it's going to be really interesting and probably fun, and we'll listen to a bunch of bands that have been on and talk about the podcast and where it has gone through, what's happened, and where it's going in the future for everything. So thanks so much, and next week we should have the mixtape volume 2, which is like a bunch of awesome bands. We're going to look back. I think it's like 24 bands on this one. So it's great, man. These mixtapes, I love it. I just play them from beginning to end. It's about, 45 minutes to an hour worth of just awesome music. I mean, it definitely is a roller coaster of styles, but if you can handle that, I think you'll love it. So check you next week, and you have a great Christmas, everyone. Or Hanukkah, or whatever the fuck you celebrate. And we'll check you out next week. Peace out. Thanks for checking out Punk Rock and Politics. If you enjoyed the show and the information brought to you, please subscribe and share the podcast. It helps us here at Punk Rock and Politics, but more importantly, it helps the featured bands gain exposure. Also, if you know any bands or musicians who would like to join the political mosh pit and have their music featured on the Punk Rock and Politics podcast, please email us at punkrockandpolitics@gmail.com. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. And rock on, political junkies.
I think all our society is run by insane people for insane objectives.
Doing a better job of talking to each other. The left hand now knows what the right hand is doing.
Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it. All right.